fasting and praying. You don't hear a lot of people talk about fasting. But in Matthew, it talks about, hey, you can't get this certain demon out of you without fasting and praying. There's a reason for it. If you're going to make a big choice in your life that's great big, you need to be fasting and praying. If you're only praying and you're not fasting, you're only getting a one part of it. It's just like being a Christian. We should all be givers, right? If we are come to the point that we hoard up everything and we don't give out, guess what? You're building a dam instead of letting a river run through. But when God gives you something and all of a sudden you hand it out and give it away, that's what Christians are supposed to be doing. When you die, guess what? If you're a millionaire, you can't take your money with you. But there's people that truly need help that you could have changed their lives. It may not change your life, but it could change so many other people's lives. There's so much struggles that are going on in families, brokenness, that are trying to get a breath of fresh air. And God has given the keys to some people to be able to help, but not everybody's willing to help. Not everybody's willing to give. Well, that's my money. No, it's not your money. That's God's money. Everything comes from God. As soon as I come to the point to realize in my life that everything was God's, all of a sudden things just started to flow. But when everything was Isaac's, guess what? It seemed like it just got stuck. That's why I hate when people refer to Isaac's church. Isaac may have been the one that planted this up here, but it's not Isaac's church. This is God's church. Isaac's just the vessel that's used here. But this is God's church. These are God's people. This is God's town. These are God's kids. All and say they're our kids. They're not our kids. They're God's kids. And sometimes we forget that they're God's. Staying close to Jesus matters. Sometimes there's things that we know that we need to get out of our life. Let me ask you, is there any of you guys in here that's got something in your life that you need to get out of your life? Raise your hand. I think if we all were honest, that everybody's got one thing that they knew that's not godly, that allows them to sin. Go to 7. It says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire and it shall be done for you. How do we get things? By asking, by abiding in him. I'm going to tell you, I may not have $1 million, even though this community thinks that I got $1 million. But God's took care of me. I've abided in him. I've sold my farm in Grove Springs. I don't have cows. Well, I got one cow and calf. Thanks to the guys. They went out and bulldogged it in Sam's yesterday and got it loaded in a trailer. Glenn put it in a headlock. I wish I'd have been videoing that. It'd have been funny to watch. But being in the presence of the Lord and giving him everything, it will change your life. You won't be that same person. But when you want to control everything and have everything and think you own lots of assets and all everything, one of the things I've come to realize is having assets, it may be nice to have those things. God's definitely used my farm to be able to invest into Niangua. But at some point, you've got to realize what God's invested in you to step into it. That it wasn't the farm that done these things. God gave me that farm. From the beginning, when we had went and filled out the loan, my family never owned a farm like that. No one in my family. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the credit. But God had a way. I went and filled out this big farmer's application thing, and I thought, woo, this is way over my head. But I put the work and the effort into it, and then all of a sudden it closed. Filled it out the end of May, the application, and a lot of realtors did not want to work with us because anything farms, barrels type of stuff, it takes like a year or something to get it through. But we filled this out the end of May, and we closed the first week. That's a God thing. I didn't understand what God was doing at the time because that was a dream. That was something that I had always wanted. But I turned my life over to God before all this happened, and all of a sudden God just started using that. I never knew that I would be willing to just give up to serve people. But without that farm, God knew that we needed it to be able to pour into here to get us going, to get us built up. And God used that in my life to get to where we're at today. Some of us think, well, no, I did that myself. No, I didn't do that myself. God did that. When you get to the point that you realize that everything in your life God's done and put in your life for a reason, you're blessed to be a blessing. There's people that will argue that all day long and say that's not true. But I'm going to tell you, in my whole life, of what I've seen and seen God do, is God has blessed me to be a blessing to so many other people. And when you realize that everything's God's, guess what? He just keeps bringing it. The other day, we got to hand out chicken, and we got to hand out laundry soap and crackers and all kinds of things. Wasn't it awesome to be able to hand those out for people? Some of the people that went around town, you got to pray for people. Some of you even got to pray for people that no one else could have prayed for. But God is using you guys to be a blessing to other people. But if we just hoard everything up, it's stuck there. It's a dam. But when God brings in, it's got to go back out. And He's using us as a vessel. Not just me, us, all of us. Pastor Joe's totally blown away of how you guys have been at camp. He said, Isaac, you've got several guys and girls in your group that are Bible, college, like, that's where you guys need to go. And I said, Pastor Joe, I've told you a million times that, hey, when you come in here, it's not just to get over addiction. You're to be discipled, to be sent out, to be leaders. Guess what? If you see me going through some struggle, you're going to go through it at some point yourself. You're not here just to get over drug addiction. You're here to be raised up that God can get the glory through you to do other ministries. Not all of us are going to have ministries. Are they going to probably be connected? I would say absolutely. But you're in here right now in a boiling pot of all kinds of different attitudes. Even the people in our church, they may not live in the recovery houses, but they're just as much a part of what's going on. A lot of them have been coming to the classes in the evening too. These classes, it's not a punishment. It's a great thing. It's a fellowship. You get to talk about things. It's like Sunday school, but it gets at the things that you've never been healed at. When we talk about your childhood, the things that happened in your childhood, it's not easy. Niagara, Missouri is not the destination for most everybody in here. This is a starting point. This is home, this is base, and this is going to be a place that's going to be sending people out. When I talked about in Sunday school and all these other things, that it's great to do, what's those things called? Devotions. That's a starting point. But at some point, you should start to get revelation, the Holy Spirit speaking to you, that you are writing these things and sending it out. That way, it's not someone else's opinion or direction. It's coming, you're hearing straight from the Lord yourself and sending it out. I believe that in this church there's apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. I believe it with everything in my life. I believe these kids, these children that we've been pouring into, they've got calls of God's on their lives too. Just my kids that are stepping into ministry, it's every one of your kids. And so as you start to realize this, guess what? You need to work with your kids, because guess what? The future ahead of them stepping into ministry themselves. You don't want them to run like we ran. Imagine them stepping into it at a young age. How much more of an impact it's going to make? Everybody that's raised up in here, I want you guys to go above and beyond where I've ever been. At some point, you're going to have to step out and realize what you're walking in yourself. TJ, can I talk about you for a minute? Sure, come up here. Mr. TJ here took off on us. How long ago was it? A month and a week he took off and thought that something was better. Guess what? He came back to us. What did you say we were?
The Compassion House is it's a God-flowing ministry. It's a family. It's my family. I'm very grateful to be back.
Love you too. One of the things I loved is he knew he needed to get back home. You don't find that everywhere else like that. One of the other awesomest things that I've seen is Paul calls me up and said, hey, TJ needs to go to the church. I'm like, well, what's going on now? He needed some help. He needed some deliverance because he'd picked up some things out there outside of here. I walked in, full-blown deliverance going on right out here. It wasn't me doing it. The guys were doing it. They're learning these things. They're walking in these things. It's not just me saying, hey, let's do this. This person needs it. They're flowing in it. Don't tell me that God ain't moving in everybody here. Those are all seeds that have been here, that have been planted. Imagine, I don't know, how many guys we got in the house now? 18? We got more than 18, don't we? We got probably 25 people, guys. 6 women. Imagine 30 different directions after you graduate here being sent out doing ministry. Not just 12, 30 different directions. How powerful that is? Do you realize why we've been being fought so hard by the devil? There is something that's changing, that's going to change this whole region. But we've got to focus and keep our eyes on the Lord. Not everything else, not all the drama. The bus out there. That's not just going to be a bus to transport people. I believe there's going to be all kinds of tent revivals popping up here soon once we get a tent. One of the first things that the Lord had showed me when we started ministering on the street in Springfield, I don't want to be the church that just prays for someone. I also want to be the church that can help somebody. All right, you serious about change? You want change in your life? Come on. We got a place to be able to help you get back on track. Not everybody has that. God has been setting things up here in order from... I'm being serious. It even happened before we ever planted the Blue Roof Church over there. It happened with Shane and Denise. It was starting there. This town, this community, is being turned upside down for God. There's a lot of people that don't like change. I'm being serious. If Jesus was persecuted, do you think we're not going to be persecuted? Yes, you're going to be persecuted. Him. You want to go to verse 8? It says, by this the Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. So how are we going to be disciples? And abiding in him, right? Glorifying him. Should we get the glory of what's going on? Our Father should get the glory, right? Everything we do should glorify God.